Right now, there is a calculation being run inside two separate government systems, one in Washington and one in Ottawa, about a senior who splits time between Canada and the United States. That calculation was not triggered by anything the senior did. It runs automatically. It runs without a letter, without a notification. And the result of that calculation is being used to determine how much of the 4 government payments coming this month that senior is actually entitled to receive. Most Canadian seniors living in or visiting the United States have never been told that receiving certain US-based benefits affects the Canadian payments they have spent decades earning. And most Canadian seniors with ties to the United States have never been told the reverse, that their Canadian payment history affects their eligibility for US Social Security and Medicare. Both are true. Both are happening right now. And by the time most families find out, one or both payment streams has already been reduced. Cross-border benefits specialists charge $400 per hour to review exactly this situation for Canadian seniors. You are getting that same review right now. And there is one connection between Canada's Old Age Security Program and the US Public Charge Immigration Rule that almost nobody covers. And we will reach it before this video ends. I am David, and I went through the official SSA documentation on the Canada-US Totalization Agreement, the OAS and CPP payment schedules for May 2026, and the USCIS Policy Manual on non-citizen benefit eligibility directly. Everything here comes from ssa.gov, canada.ca, and ussus.gov, not community posts, not forwarded summaries. Before we go through all 4 payments, neither SSA nor Service Canada sends you a personal notification when a cross-border rule change affects your specific payment. Both agencies update their policy documentation and expect you to find it. Subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell, so this channel reaches you before a payment change affects your May income or your immigration status in either country. And join our WhatsApp community linked in the description. We share confirmed updates the moment they are verified. No rumors, no unconfirmed amounts. One message from you to the right family group tonight could protect a Canadian senior parent or grandparent who has no one helping them navigate both systems at once. Now let me show you exactly what we found. Here is what is confirmed under the Canada-US Totalization Agreement and current SSA and Service Canada policy. Canadian seniors who have worked and contributed in both Canada and the United States may be entitled to receive government payments from both countries simultaneously. Under the Canada-US Totalization Agreement, in force since 1984 and updated since, work credits earned in Canada under the Canada Pension Plan and credits earned in the United States under Social Security can be combined to meet the eligibility threshold in either country. This is a real, documented legal benefit. It is available whether the senior currently lives in Canada, the United States, or splits time between both. Here is what is being shared in Canadian senior communities and immigrant family groups right now that is not accurate. That receiving Canadian government payments, OAS, CPP, or GIS, automatically disqualifies a Canadian senior from receiving US Social Security or from maintaining their US immigration status. That is false. Receiving Canadian government retirement benefits does not disqualify a senior from US Social Security benefits they have earned through US-covered employment. But, and this is the part most people miss, certain combinations of Canadian and US benefits do trigger a reduction in one or both payments under rules that most families have never read. We are going to show you exactly which 4 payments are coming in May 2026, who qualifies for each, and which combinations create a cross-border payment reduction that you need to know about before it affects this month's deposit. The first thing the official documentation confirms is what the 4 government payments are and which Canadian seniors are entitled to receive them. The 4 payments coming in May 2026 that this video covers are Old Age Security, called OAS, from Service Canada, the Canada Pension Plan Retirement Pension, called CPP, from Service Canada, the Guaranteed Income Supplement, called GIS, which is an additional monthly payment for low-income OAS recipients, and U.S. Social Security retirement or disability benefits for Canadian seniors who have qualifying U.S. work credits. Under Service Canada's official payment schedule, OAS and CPP payments for May 2026 are issued on April 28, 2026, deposited directly into the recipient's account before the calendar month begins. The GIS payment, if applicable, is issued on the same date. For Canadian seniors who also qualify for U.S. Social Security, the SSA payment date depends on the senior's birth date. Payments are issued on the second, third, or fourth Wednesday of the month based on the day of birth. Understanding which of these 4 payments you or your senior family member is entitled to and on which date each arrives is the foundation of everything else we are going to cover. Say exactly this when you contact Service Canada to verify your May payment status. I would like to confirm my current OAS, CPP, and GIS payment amounts for May 2026 and verify that my banking information on file is current. Nothing more. That single request confirms 3 of the 4 payment streams in one call. Never assume that because your Canadian payments arrived correctly last month, they will arrive at the same amount this month without verification. Under Service Canada policy, GIS amounts are recalculated annually based on income reported in your prior year tax return. A Canadian senior whose income changed in 2025, including income from a U.S. Social Security payment that began in 2025, may find their GIS amount adjusted in May 2026 without any prior notice. This applies to Canadian citizens and permanent residents who are 65 or older and who meet the OAS residency requirements, at least 10 years of residence in Canada after age 18 for partial OAS or 40 years for full OAS. It also applies to Canadian seniors who have U.S. work credits and who have filed or are eligible to file for U.S. Social Security under the totalization agreement. It does not apply to Canadian seniors who have no U.S. work history and who have never resided in the United States. Their payment situation is governed entirely by Service Canada rules. Cross-border benefits specialists charge $400 per consultation to map exactly this payment picture for Canadian senior families. This video is that mapping. But the second point is where most Canadian senior families in the United States have been given completely wrong guidance, and it involves how U.S. Social Security treats Canadian CPP income. The second point involves the windfall elimination provision and how it specifically affects Canadian seniors who receive CPP and also qualify for U.S. Social Security. Under the Social Security Act, Section 215A, the Windfall Elimination Provision, WEP, reduces a worker's U.S. Social Security benefit if that worker receives a pension from employment not covered by U.S. Social Security taxes. The Canada Pension Plan is a pension from employment not covered by U.S. Social Security taxes. This means that a Canadian senior who receives CPP and also qualifies for U.S. Social Security will have their U.S. Social Security benefit calculated using the WEP modified formula, not the standard formula. The WEP reduction for 2026 can be as much as $587 per month from the U.S. Social Security benefit. The actual reduction depends on the number of years of substantial U.S. Social Security covered earnings. A Canadian senior with 30 or more years of substantial U.S. covered earnings is exempt from the WEP entirely. A senior with fewer than 30 years of substantial U.S. covered earnings will have a WEP reduction applied, the exact amount varying by years of coverage. Consider a Canadian senior who worked in Canada for 25 years, contributing to CPP throughout, then worked in the United States for 12 years in covered U.S. employment before retiring. SSA calculated their U.S. Social Security benefit using the standard formula without applying the WEP. The CPP payment was not disclosed on the original SSA application. 2 years after the senior began receiving U.S. Social Security, SSA identified the CPP pension through a data sharing process with Service Canada under the totalization agreement. SSA issued a notice of overpayment. The senior had been paid at the standard rate rather than the WEP adjusted rate for 24 months. The resulting overpayment recovery reduced the senior's monthly U.S. Social Security payment for the following 18 months. The correct step at the time of application would have been to disclose the CPP pension and request a WEP calculation before the first payment was issued. Third, and this connects directly to the payment most Canadian seniors in the U.S. are missing entirely. The third point involves the GIS, and why Canadian seniors living in the United States are frequently losing this payment without knowing why. The Guaranteed Income Supplement is a monthly non-taxable payment added to OAS for low-income seniors. Under Service Canada's GIS eligibility rules, the payment is available to OAS recipients whose annual income, excluding OAS itself, falls below the GIS income threshold. For a single senior in 2026, the full GIS begins phasing out above approximately $21,000 in annual income. For Canadian seniors who also receive U.S. Social Security, the U.S. Social Security payment is counted as income in the GIS calculation. A senior who begins receiving U.S. Social Security mid-year may find that their GIS is reduced or eliminated at the next annual recalculation, not because of anything they did incorrectly, but because the U.S. Social Security income crossed the GIS threshold. Service Canada does not send a personalized warning before the recalculation reduces the payment. The reduction appears in the deposit amount. The connection between beginning a U.S. Social Security payment and losing GIS eligibility is one of the most financially significant cross-border interactions that Canadian senior families face, and it is almost never covered by either Canadian or U.S. benefits information sources. And fourth, this is the specific detail that most coverage never reaches. Canadian seniors who reside in the United States, either as lawful permanent residents, visa holders, or cross-border residents, must notify both Service Canada and SSA of any change in residence address. Service Canada requires notification of any change in country of residence because OAS and GIS payment rules differ for non-residents of Canada. A Canadian senior who moves to the United States permanently and does not notify Service Canada may receive OAS at the resident rate when the non-resident rate and non-resident tax withholding rules apply. The resulting discrepancy creates a repayment obligation that can accumulate over years before it is identified. Now here is the connection that almost no coverage reaches. And this is what I mentioned at the beginning. The 4 Canadian and U.S. government payments coming in May 2026 do not exist in separate silos. They connect directly to U.S. immigration status because of how USCIS evaluates public benefit receipt under the public charge inadmissibility standard. Here is the mechanism in plain terms. Under USCIS Policy Manual Volume 8, Part G, the public charge rule requires immigration officers to evaluate whether a non-citizen applying for a green card or certain status changes is likely to become primarily dependent on government assistance. Canadian OAS and CPP are not U.S. government benefits. They are Canadian government benefits funded by Canadian contributions. They are not considered in the U.S. public charge analysis. However, if a Canadian senior who holds a U.S. green card or visa applies for and receives SSI, supplemental security income, that U.S. means-tested benefit is specifically listed in the public charge analysis. A Canadian senior who receives Canadian OAS and CPP but also applies for U.S. SSI to supplement their income may be creating an immigration record that complicates a future green card renewal or status adjustment, even though the Canadian payments themselves create no immigration issue. In real terms, for a Canadian senior family, choosing to apply for U.S. SSI as a supplement to Canadian government payments is not just a financial decision. It is an immigration decision. The two systems are connected in a way that most families never anticipate until a green card renewal interview raises the question. Here is your exact plan. Write this down or save this video. Step 1. Confirm your May 2026 Canadian payment amounts by logging into your My Service Canada account at canada.ca or calling Service Canada at 1-800-277-9914. Verify OAS, CPP, and GIS amounts separately. Note the deposit date, April 28th for May payments. Step 2. If you or your senior family member has U.S. work history, even as few as 6 U.S. work credits, contact SSA at 1-800-772-1213 and say exactly this. I would like to request a totalization benefit evaluation based on my Canadian and U.S. work history combined. Do not add anything else. SSA will request your Service Canada earnings record as part of the evaluation. Step 3. If you currently receive both CPP and U.S. Social Security, verify with SSA that your U.S. Social Security benefit was calculated using the WEP adjusted formula, not the standard formula. If it was calculated using the standard formula and you receive CPP, a WEP correction and possible overpayment recovery may be coming. Address it before SSA initiates it. Step 4. Never apply for U.S. SSI without first consulting with an immigration attorney about how SSI receipt will appear in a future green card renewal or status application. The consultation cost is far lower than the immigration consequence of an unexpected public charge finding. Step 5. Share this video with one Canadian senior family in your community who receives Canadian government payments and has any U.S. immigration status or U.S. work history. The GIS to U.S. Social Security connection alone affects thousands of families who have never been warned. Send it directly to their phone tonight. Official resources: Service Canada, canada.ca, 1-800-277-9914, SSA Totalization, ssa.gov, International, Our Agreements Canada, SSA, ssa.gov, 1-800-772-013, USCIS Public Charge, uscis.gov, Green Card, Processes and Procedures, Public Charge Immigration, Legal Aid, Immigration, Advocates.org, Benefits Eligibility, benefits.gov. 2 warnings before we finish. First, immigration scams. There are consultants charging Canadian senior families to coordinate their Canadian and U.S. payments or to file totalization applications on their behalf for a fee. Totalization applications are filed directly with SSA at no charge. No private consultant can access your Service Canada record or your SSA file without your written authorization. And no legitimate service charges a percentage of your benefit to file a free government form. Only work with attorneys licensed by a state bar or BIA accredited representatives. Second, benefits scams. If anyone contacts your Canadian senior family member by phone claiming that their OAS or CPP payment has been flagged by U.S. authorities and must be verified with a wire transfer or gift card, that is a scam. Neither Service Canada nor SSA communicates payment holds by phone. Real communication from both agencies comes by mail only. Hang up immediately and call Service Canada or SSA directly using the numbers in this video. I want to hear from you directly. Which country are you originally from? And are you or a senior family member managing government payments from more than one country right now? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and your questions shape the next video. What we covered today is documented, confirmed, and already affecting Canadian senior families navigating both the U.S. and Canadian benefit systems right now. Neither SSA nor Service Canada will send you a personal explanation when a cross-border rule change affects your payment. This channel will subscribe, turn on notifications, and join the WhatsApp community in the description so urgent updates reach you directly. I am David. You have rights in this country. You have benefits you have earned. Knowing both protects everything. Take care of yourself.